Grabbing basic island. Casting Ponder. Top three cards. From there, draws a Pontus starts his turn, plays basic mountain, follows up the Goblin Guide, the classic. Has Jonathan stacked his ponder correctly? Um, uh, Either he did not have any lands on the top three cards of his on as the top three cards of his library, or you would have to question that ponder. However, he gets another chance to trigger this Goblin Guide as a brainstorm. As long as he has enough lands in hand. Usually is not a problem. Let's back Tropical Island after putting back what I believe was a Snapcaster make full use. Goblin Guide, I believe. Always a good trick. Swift Spear, Swift Spear. Back for 4. Feeling of Tropical Island. Towards the Plowshares. It's the Goblin Guide. And Jonathan goes down to 14. It's hard to see. We are being rejoined by Casper just as Jonathan casts an Uro.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, Uro against Burn. I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Gaining life is modern Burn's biggest weakness, and I believe it still holds true for Legacy. I know Theodore somewhat from previous tournaments as well, or Pontus even.
Pontus.
Okay, I thought he was playing as Theodore. Never mind. I know Pontus as well, actually, from previous tournaments, and he has performed quite well, from what I have heard. I have not met him myself, but he seems like a good player. He's in top 8, so he has to do something right. But is his burn spells enough to take out Jonathan?
Yeah, one of the tactics used, especially against various forms of life gain in modern, um, is that in modern, Burn will sometimes play cards that prevent the gaining of life in the main deck, such as Skullcrack. Don't know if the same is true Legacy. I guess we could try and find
Decklist.
Yeah.
Perhaps even he could play stuff like.
But yeah, here comes the Uro.
Like Sulfuric Vortex, probably. That's a lazy card.
Yeah, Sulfuric Vortex is a classic burn card. Would not put it past Pontus to play such a solid burn card. Which, of course, both deals 2 damage to each player in their upkeep. Or, yeah, deals 2 damage to a player in their upkeep and prevents the gaining of life. currently the hand seems to consist of chain lightning, as well as exquisite firecraft. I believe from a core set. It's from the core set, specifically. But yeah, an uncounterable burn spell. So no real way to prevent the life gain off the arrow. However, an army of Swift Spears potentially capable of jamming a lot of damage even through an arrow. So deal 6 damage to Jonathan here, taking him to 5 actually, I believe. I'll make sure to make sure. I'll make sure
this
to.
down.
Yeah.
Right now, Pod is going down from having 3 Swift Spear to just having the 1. Um, he is a bit empty-handed. He has, I believe that's 2 cards, maybe 3. So we'll see if he can do anything against this big threat of a Uro just attacking him.
Now there is that exquisite firecraft. The deck also runs cards like Fire Blast, that sack 2 mountains for its casting cost. It's capable of doing a lot of damage, but it's hard to see. Hard to see how to do it when Uro's gaining all this life every turn. Um, um, so Pontus's deck contains a single copy of Roiling Vortex, which seems to be the only way to prevent the gaining of life. So that singleton copy of Roiling Vortex could potentially what he needs, but it's also very difficult facing down a 6/6 and a 4/4. Try and just sort of prevent the gaining of life. At that point, you might take so much damage that you just you just die trying to. Here you see him trading off with an Omnath, or well, attempting to. Jonathan fetches in response. Getting a bit of life. Trades off. Pontus passes the. Jonathan untaps. Attacks with the Uro. Draws a card, goes to 15. Pass to Fairy Time Raveler.
Here comes that Uro again, gaining a bit of life. And
he backs
on
in.
his.
When your opponent starts closing in on the starting life total, it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Burn.
Especially after like 3 creatures having hidden him like a few turns ago, and him just going back to that 20 and only like burn spells being left. It's hard.
Yeah, and there was a single turn there where Jonathan was facing down a lethal attack even through the Euro, but had that one of Swords to Plowshares. And after that, Pontus's Twisted Firecraft just sort of rotted in his hand because he didn't have enough mana to cast it. And from there, the game sort of slipped out of his hand.
That's so unfortunate.
Yeah. But right now, we're going to sideboards, and in the sideboard, Pontus has 2 copies of Dead Gone, two more copies of Roiling Vortex, 2 red Elemental Blasts, 2 Searing Bloods, 2 Smash to Smithereens, and 4 copies of Leyline of the Void. What would you say that you're bringing in matchup?
Well, does Rolling Vortex say that you can't gain life, or is it just the damage?
It's deals 1 damage to each in the upkeep to the player. And you can, for red, you can activate it to prevent somebody, or more specifically, your opponents can't gain life. You sort of, it costs 2, but you have to activate it.
Right, so probably the Rolling Vortexes. I'm a bit unsure of what Dead Gone does. I'm not that familiar with those.
It deals 3 damage to target creature, or it deals 3 damage to any target, I think, or it returns something. It returns a creature to its owner's hand. A little bit of a Murktide card, I think. So
probably Vortex, Red Blast could be good in the matchup. What's Searing Blood? What does that do?
Deals 2 damage to target creature, and if it dies, the opponent takes 3. So probably not bringing that in.
So I would not bring in Dead Gone, Searing Blood, or Smash, and probably not Leyline. It is okay, I guess, but I don't know how much he knows about his opponent. But since we both have seen him side out like all of his graveyard cards, that could be the case, and then there would be 4 uncastable cards that does nothing in the deck. So it's a bit risky since he isn't revolving around the graveyard necessarily.
Yeah, the argument for Leyline of the Void is that Jonathan isn't really expecting it. But the argument against it is that Jonathan can kind of play his deck even through a Leyline, especially if he takes out a couple of graveyard cards.
I would assume that you do respect the Life from Loam and also the Uro, and side in the Leylines as well for game 2. You see that he sided them out, maybe you want to side the Leylines out, but then he might just bring them back in. So I think for game 2 I would respect the graveyard and side in Leylines, Rolling Vortex, and also the red Elemental Blast for those nasty Planeswalkers.
Yeah, and especially respecting that Uro makes a lot of sense. Like if your Leyline of the Void reads if your Leyline of the Void reads your opponent doesn't gain 6 life off of Uro, that's pretty good in burn decks.
It also messes a lot with their mana.
Yeah.
Form of not being able to take back the fetches with to be able to cast Loam, stuff like that.
Yeah. Pontus here on the 6 cards. Jonathan seems to be settling for his 7. Chain Lightning, Mountain, Rift Bolt, Firecraft, Mountain, Monastery Swift here, and Mystery card.
And
puts back what I believe to be a Rift Bolt, Mountain, Monastery Swift. Jonathan heads to 19. Whereas Swords to Plowshares, always a welcome matchup.
Yeah, totally.
Roiling Vortex has arrived. Pretty important card, especially when Jonathan is trying to sort of be very controlling. Really need to put a clock on something, not care about Roiling Vortex, and Jonathan's deck is pretty low. Swords of Plowshares here. Um, Interesting to see whether he fetches, or well, actually, it's um, always interesting to see to what extent somebody respects price of progress. But here you just gotta fetch them.
Yeah.
In order to be able to cast your Swords of Plowshares. So price of progress, of course, is a very important card for the burn deck in a lot of matchups, but also this one. Deals 2 damage for every non-basic land each player controls.
Very strong card.
Yeah.
Very strong.
Currently dealing 2 to Jonatan.
Yeah. It quite quickly outvalues a bolt in this format. Very, very fast.
There's a Chain Lightning at the top of the hand. I believe some other Lightning Bolt variants might be there with it. Starts off the Chain Lightning, takes Jonatan 17, follows up the Chain Lightning. Head on over to 11. And passing of the turn might be not a land left in his deck, or left in his hand. It may be an Exquisite Firecraft, for example. What was a good last burn spell to have? Fairy Time Raveler. Funnily enough, Burn is probably one of the matchups where Teferi is impactful. Other than shutting down instant burn spells, really doesn't do much, and Pontus seems to be just going face here. Taking Jonatan 8 life. Jonatan casts a Ponder. Decides to shuffle. Opposable is a Flusterstorm. Potential counterspell for burn spell, but not for the Goblin Guide.
Totally anybody's game at this point. Like Jonatan being down to 8 and Hans being up to 22 doesn't really do anything because Jonatan wins regardless if he wins. But really, all about what spells Pontus has.
Yeah, and
That's
if you're
double Goblin Guy.
very good, if you're Jonatan here, you're really desperate for some kind of way to gain life. Especially since there are certain burn spells that Jonatan really can't get around. Cards like Exquisite Firecraft can't be countered.
Oh, he allows it.
Yep. 2 Goblin Guides currently in play.
Very interesting.
Both attack.
Both attack face.
2 lands for Jonatan.
Goes up to 24 and he takes 2.
Of course, one of the hidden weaknesses of Goblin Guide is the existence of Brainstorm.
That's a good hand. That's a really good hand against burn spells.
Yeah. And here
And the
comes
Ura,
our
of course. Quite unfortunate for Pontus. Looks a bit disappointed.
Marcus. Returns the Euro to hand.
Fair play. And passes. Plus the fairy. Because they targets, right? But
No, the plus doesn't work. The minus.
no,
targets.
right, yeah. The plus is that your opponent can't cast instants.
No.
Is that passive?
So the passive
No,
is your
yeah.
opponent can't.
It's that you can cast sources as instants.
Exactly.
That's the plus.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Got it mixed up. Sorry.
So like I said, the passive is that your opponents can't cast sorceries at instant speed, and the plus, you can cast instants at instant. Those are the abilities of Teferi Time Raveler. The minus is that you return a creature to hand and then return it to the battlefield.
You said that you cast instants at instant speed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's why it's so good.
it seems broken.
Yep. So the Exquisite Firecraft does what it does best, resolves, taking Jonatan to three life. And here comes Fire Blast, but in response, the Flusterstorm. Yeah, Pontus potentially had lethal there. That Flusterstorm really hampered the plans, and from here, the Omnath
Surely the game isn't 0-0.
takes Jonathan. No, Jonathan is up one game. That is correct.
Okay.
But yeah, so the Omnath comes in. The Rift Bolt gets put on suspend. But as we know, Jonathan has a litany of lands to play, and will be gaining a lot of life from here. He goes to 11. Here comes the Burrow, taking him to 14. Dragon card, playing a second land drop, which will generate more mana. And we are living the dream, as they say. Uro Omnath. We really have. I mean, we're one Oko away from just living it. And Pontus picks up the cards, understanding that that is the end.